the screen in full screen here, and then we will get started. And of course, this always happens on the wrong screen. So I'm still on the wrong screen. Just give me a second. Okay, actually I have to do one thing. Just 1 second, and it will be back here. All right. Perfect. All right, now we are ready. All right, and welcome to my session on the Microsoft Purview and Defender days. And of course, this is a one-day virtual event, as you have heard probably 7 or 8 times already today. The one thing I love about these events is that you can even get prizes. So you have to stay until the end to be part of the raffle. And of course, this type of events would never happen without our lovely sponsors, Pentara and Microsoft. So thank you so much to them, and please show them the joy and the happiness of them sponsoring this by visiting their website and checking what they are doing. We all know what Microsoft is doing, but check out Pentara as well. And then, of course, today I'm going to talk to you about how you can ensure your communication compliance policy with Viva Engage. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Viva Engage at all, but let me run into that. But first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Knut Relbe-Moe, and I'm from Norway, living a little bit outside of Oslo. I've been working with Microsoft for 20 years now. That's make me sound old, but I'm not that old, but still makes me sound old. And currently I'm working for Lightning Tools and Mosaic 365 as a partner evangelist, basically recruiting partners to resell our products. I'm also hosting the Collab Days Oslo, former SharePoint Saturday Oslo. So we do have that event coming up on the 30th of November. So feel free to join if you can. And of course, you have my contact details on bottom of the screen. I have also launched a site called 365 Expert, so feel free to check it out and DM me if you want some discounts. But of course, today we are all going to talk about Microsoft Viva Engage and how we can make sure that our communication compliance policy is intact there. Because of course, Viva Engage, I'm not sure if you're aware what Viva Engage is, but I will get back to that a little bit later. This is the agenda. I have like, let's say, 35 minutes or so. So we will manage, hopefully. But of course, from the introduction perspective, Microsoft Viva Tools is built on top of Microsoft 365. So that means it works with the same security, compliance, and privacy principle as everything else around the Microsoft 365 stack. That, of course, means that you will have the same responsibility for data controls with the customers. Tools must be configured and used to fulfill obligation of all of these things. And of course, it can be different rules and different regulation based on which country you are living, and of course, also which country your data is stored. So that brings us to the shared responsibility model that Microsoft has when it comes to is your data. You as a customer has control of the data, is yours. No, it shouldn't be shared with anyone. But of course, it's also Microsoft has the transparent operation model where you have built-in security, continuous compliance, and privacy by design. But when that is said, of course, when it comes to Viva Engage and other products, of course, you need to know how to configure it. You need to how to go and check things out. For instance, if you want to do an e-discovery on the data to see if something has been done wrong, shared wrong, somebody has shared sensitive data, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that we need to know about to be able to make sure that the compliance is on par with whatever we have inside of our company. So, of course, key questions when it comes to around governance would be like the location of the data, like where is my data stored? For instance, I'm from Norway. We are outside of the European Union, but luckily right now we have a data center in Norway. But that doesn't mean that my data is stored in Norway, because of course, if an organization here created a Microsoft tenant like many years ago, we didn't have a Microsoft tenant or like a data center in Norway, we had to use like West Europe, which is like the Netherlands, or we had to use North Europe, which is Ireland, which is not the same country as here. And especially with Viva Engage, that being part kind of historically saying was Yammer, it was even more concerns about how to use it and how to govern it and where the data was stored, because it's not that long ago that actually the Viva Engage or Yammer data was actually stored in the US, or you couldn't kind of guarantee that the data couldn't be also stored in the US, which means that a lot of organizations couldn't use Viva Engage because of local regulation and local laws within the European Union, for instance. So of course, what is Viva Engage? If you are not familiar with that, as I mentioned, it's formerly known as Yammer. I'm not sure, of course, Facebook or Meta, as they're called, they had something called Workplace by Facebook, which they actually now has retired. And that means that actually Viva Engage is getting more attention. It will be more in demand in the upcoming months, because it's like 1 year until Workplace by Facebook is end of life. So that means that probably a lot of customers is going to move to Microsoft and Viva Engage because they're probably already using Microsoft. So it makes no sense to try to go to other third-party products maybe for them. And this is, of course, also why we need to look into how is compliance within Viva Engage itself. With Viva Engage, it can be used standalone. It's a social how I will say, it's like a social network basically for your organization. It's especially popular if you have an organization that has a lot of frontline workers, because that's a way that you can kind of communicate and connect with your employees. And especially also now post-COVID, we sadly have to still talk about that. The way we work has changed. A lot of people are sitting at home, doing their day-to-day job at home. They don't feel that kind of connection with the organization they are working, because we don't have those coffee chats, we don't have lunch together, all that kind of stuff. And then to recreate that kind of feeling to belong to something, that's where Viva Engage can come in and can help you to kind of get that social network going and feeling that you're all part of the same organization. Currently myself, I'm doing a Viva Engage project and rollout for a big trampoline park in the US. So there we have all of these kind of questions also arising, with how we will do all of these things. Some highlighted features to mention is that you can post news, you can post announcements, you can post basically polls, and you can even post praises. You can praise a colleague. You can also use what is called storylines. So it means that it's kind of like YouTube Short just for your organization. And especially for leaders, this is an amazing functionality, because they can every week, if they want, create like a short 1-minute motivation speak to their employees. We also have something called Leadership Corner, which is really good for the same, because everyone, you can configure who is the leaders and who should follow the leaders in Viva Engage, and then you can kind of post news, post information, and make sure that everybody that is underneath you will get that kind of information. But that is kind of the little bit the background of Viva Engage, because before we jump into compliance and whatever we can do with governing Viva Engage, we need to look at what it is to understand it completely. So some things that we can do when it comes to governing Viva Engage is that, of course, historically saying, Microsoft bought Yammer, as it was called before, in 2012 and started to integrate it into Microsoft 365. But it's only from January 2020 that all new Yammer networks was configured in what is called a native mode. A native mode means that it is connected with Microsoft 365 groups and use Azure AD for access control, or Entra, as it's called these days. Some aspects that is still managing outside of the Microsoft 365 core functionality would be keyword monitoring, because if it's an open social network, everybody can post if you haven't put into restrictions to that. That means that everybody can write, everybody can post, everybody can reply to somebody else's post. So that means that you have to have some keyword monitoring to make sure that people don't share sensitive data there, like bank cards, for instance, or that they don't have malicious talk. Maybe they can be really harassing colleagues. Maybe they can write something really bad because they're frustrated about something. And then you need to have this keyword monitoring to make sure that you are notified about that. So one key aspect of actually doing a Viva Engage rollout will be to have moderators that will go in and moderate the communities that you are creating within Viva Engage. That means that and since this has like a legacy of being outside of Microsoft 365, there's still some stuff that is not 100% supported by Microsoft Purview. So that is also something that we need to be aware about. Besides that, we can see that, for instance, communication compliance is something I will show you a little bit later, but also considering now that everything is in native mode, that means that, for instance, every Yammer community will have an Office 365 group connected with it. So that means that you can govern that as the same way as you will have done with any other Microsoft 365 group or Microsoft Teams team for that matter. So there are a lot of things there. So what we need to considering and kind of focus about, and then what I will focus about in this session is the Viva Engage specific items. All the other ones, I'm pretty sure someone else has covered already today, or they will cover it later today. So first of all, from the data location perspective, Viva Engage store messaging and attaching files in the same geographic as the network is created. So for instance, if you're Viva or if you're kind of Viva Engage, since it's connected to your Microsoft 365, it stores the data where your tenant has been created, where your Microsoft 365 tenant has been created. Files are now stored inside of SharePoint in accordance with the SharePoint data residency setting. So that means that we can govern them as we can do with any other file stored in SharePoint. To check where your data is stored when it comes to Viva Engage, you can go into settings and edit network admin settings under success, and within there you will see your geolocation. I will show you that in a demo later anyways. And of course, you can also check where your Microsoft 365 services are stored by going into your Office 365 admin interface and under organization profile and data location. I will show you that also later, so just don't worry about that. And then, of course, we have some specific Yammer stuff or Viva Engage. I'm still confused about the name, but that's okay. What is when it comes to Yammer, it requires at least one network to be configured within the tenant. And of course, since this still has some legacy when it comes to Yammer, there are some stuff that we have to configure in the old Yammer interface, and there's some stuff we can configure in the new Viva Engage Admin Center. So when it comes to Viva Engage specific option, we can go and set an acceptable user policy. We can set keywords for monitoring. We can allow users to report conversation, and we can allow and block external users. There's also like a switch when it comes to private content mode. And what means is that if you have legal reasons to go in and kind of look into what people are writing on private messages on Viva Engage, then you can switch on, because at that point in time you can actually go in and check what people are writing between themselves. So of course you cannot do that unless you have legal boundaries to do so. That and of course we have a new updated Viva Engage Admin Center, and I will show you all of that in a few moments. But here, this is kind of a little bit of a highlighting of what you can do. You can assign corporate communicators. You can go and do some sentiment analysis there. You can export data, and this is the one I will actually talk about a little bit later. And we can, of course, remove Viva Engage and the other stuff that we can do here. But this is not under the compliance story. It's more about how to administrate Viva Engage itself. So I'm not going to go into deep about that right now. When it comes to compliance and security and all that kind of stuff within Microsoft Viva Engage, of course, you need to have Entra ID, or as we call before Azure AD. You need to have Exchange Online and SharePoint Online license as well. You need to have a Viva Engage license for basic features. For premium features, there's something called a Viva Suite license that is available for you. as mentioned, there is a Microsoft 365 group as foundation for every community you create inside of Viva Engage. So that's also like where you need to a little bit think about what communities you want to create in Viva Engage compared to what kind of teams you want to create inside of Microsoft Teams. So you don't have the same, because that will be quite so confusing, because it will create like a SharePoint site in the back end, no matter if you create a team or if you create a community inside of Viva Engage. And of course, there are like some kind of small hiccups in Viva Engage. I can cover some of those when I will go in and show you it later when it comes to files and access and permissions and all of that kind of stuff. When you add admin into a community, that means that it's also a Microsoft 365 group owner. So it gets a lot of permissions, maybe more permissions that you actually want that person to have. And also on the files in SharePoint, you get also more permissions as a member than you actually pretty much for sure want that employee to have inside of SharePoint. So there are a few downfalls here that you need to be aware of. So which is around like making sure you have security and access in the right way configured. But Microsoft Purview can help you to control retention and deletion of content, of course, in Microsoft 365. And it can help you when it comes to Viva Engage. Community messages and user messages can be controlled with retention policies in Microsoft Purview. And of course, since Viva Engage files are stored inside of SharePoint, you can also have retention policies attached to that as well. Yeah, so let's just continue for now. And of course, this one is pretty important because like you want not sensitivity data to get out. So you can go in and create customized rules for tracking and blocking sharing actions. There are actually multiple ways of doing this, and I will get back into that a little bit later. But sadly, it doesn't apply to Viva Engage messaging. So, but it applies to the files that are stored in SharePoint sites that are governed. But what we can do, we can limit Viva Engage to internal users only. So we can kind of block it from having the possibility to add external users into Viva Engage. My sense would be, as I always say with Microsoft Teams, you should have a really good reason to open up a team for external users, and it has to be the same when it comes to Viva Engage to make sure that everything is secure and safe. And of course, you can take advantage of sensitivity labels, but I'm not going to cover this today. But this is in general for SharePoint and SharePoint files and all of that kind of stuff. It's really great when it comes to Microsoft Purview, but it's not applicable to Viva Engage community, so it doesn't work there yet, but hopefully one day in the future. So that brings us to what are the things that we can actually do with Viva Engage when it comes to compliance. And we can do content search, we can do e-discovery, both standard and premium, and we can go and use to search content in Viva Engage. And we can also go in and search for texts and all that kind of stuff also within Microsoft Purview. And that brings me to my demo time. So we have like a good 15 minutes for demo before we'll round it up. So that is great. So let me just get this one across here. And perfect. So first of all, let's go and do some Viva Engage things here. The basic ones, like a usage policy and all of that kind of stuff. So this is just a demo environment. So here there's not a lot of things, but for instance, if you go into the gear icon up here, I can see that I'm a network admin, so I can get the edit network admin settings here. So you have to be a network admin to do that, and there's also different security roles within Viva Engage. So, but within the edit network admin settings, as you can see here, just give me a second. So yeah. So we are here, and we get actually here, I haven't set a usage policy already, so we get like a checklist. So here I can go in and I can set the usage policy. And this is something that you have to do, considering that if somebody is writing something malicious, if somebody is doing something wrong within the community, then if they had already accepted the usage policy to use it, then you can actually take actions afterwards. So everybody needs to have a usage policy here. Pay attention to the fact that you can use some HTML tags here to make it look pretty. It's quite difficult to make it look pretty, but you can actually do that. But yeah, you have to basically go in and apply some HTML to make it look pretty, like bold text and so on. But there are limitations to what HTML text you can actually do. But you can also set a custom browser policy, but this one actually works pretty well if you just spend a little bit of time on it, and if you are familiar with some HTML. So you see here that this is where we are applying who is the network admins, so you can just add new ones. And you have to go in and apply this one in the old Yammer, and you see that the URL is still yammer.com, so that is pretty funny. We see external networks. External networks will not work if you are in a native mode, which means that it will not work for you. And you have to go in also here on new Yammer, and I will highly recommend that you should set the switch to enable all new Yammer users to use the new Yammer, which is Viva Engage and not the old, and not possible to opt out from it. So to make sure that it's on this one. You can remove users. You can also go in and export users if you want. You can also go in here. It's more on the content and compliance, as you can see, because here we can go and write different type of monitor keywords that you want to do. And here, let me just go and find some stuff here that I had in my slide to have some examples for you. So here, you can actually go in and add some boundaries within here. So let me just put it in Notepad to make it a little bit cleaner. So yeah, so for instance, you can go in and put for credit cards, as you can see here, these are the ones going up here. You can do for social security numbers. You can also go in and basically adding like swear words, like all the bad words, like kill a person. You can do like all those here. You can write all really bad swearing words in here, and then it will actually go in and monitoring all of this, and it will send to the person here if somebody is using those. So that is one thing that you should put in for sure. For instance, you might want to have bomb. There's a lot of ones you might want to have there. You can also go in and put on what is called like report conversations. And this one you have also to have on, in my opinion, because that means that you are basically having the possibility to, first of all, also using also, if you are using compliance in Microsoft Purview, reports will be sent to these emails in case of missing configurations within the compliance settings in Purview. So of course, here again, I will just write Knut at teamscastaway.co as this, and then you can also customize a message that people will come and get when they want to actually report this. This is okay, report. Like, are you sure you want to report this issue, for instance? And you can thank you for putting this into our attention. For instance, something like that you can do. And you can just go in here. And then I can just show you like an example of the user policy that you can also use, like some parts of it. Just give me 1 second, I just need to sign in. Always is MFA fun, so let me just grab it up on my other monitor here. So, but before we do that, we can always click save. And monitor keyword, just I will double check that I put in the right email address, and I didn't do that. So let me just fix that. And then I will grab my usage policy. So for instance, I will just do some parts of it, not all of it. Maybe like that. And so you see I have a list, and I just need to start the list also and click save. And if you go into here as well, before I will jump and show it to you, you see external messaging. So this one typically I will say no to. And then of course you can also block Office 365 users without Viva Engage license. That's also possible. You can go into exporting your network data. So sometimes that might be needed for if somebody should come in and do some kind of a review of your stuff for legal purposes. And you can also export a user data as well. Might be if somebody if somebody come and shot your colleague or whatever, then or wanted to kind of put a bomb somewhere, then this might be needed to go and do. And of course, data retention policy is also on here. If you want to delete stuff, you need to basically export everything with PowerShell, and you need to write your PowerShell scripts to delete everything. Like if, for instance, you want to completely remove Viva Engage, there are a lot of steps there to do. But let me know if you need help on that. And here you see that content mode. This was the one that I mentioned. Like if you, for legal reasons, can go and check things then of what people are writing among each other, then you can go and switch this on. This is something that you have to have legal reasons to do, so that's why the default mode is to have it off, basically. So that's all the settings within here. And you see also I mentioned that you can go into success to find out where your tenant is stored. You see here that is in the EU geo. If it will be in the US, it will be US geo here. And if it will be in other geos, it will be written here. So it's really easy to see where your Viva Engage network is stored. So for instance, if you are in Europe and you have to store everything in Europe based on legal requirements, then you can see here that, hey, yes, everything is stored and everything is great based on that. So let's now go back to Viva Engage. Actually, there's one more thing I should do here under usage policy. I forgot that. So you can actually go in here. Yeah, I already selected to go in and have it in your display policy reminder in the sidebar. So it looks like I did that in another environment. I have like two ones. So let me just go into that one to show it to you. Engage Cloud. Sometimes Edge is fun. It logs me into my default environment. And you see here, this is where I got. So you see here that this is how it works. And here my formatting was not like perfect because I just copied it. But this is kind of how it looks. Perfect. So let's jump back into this environment because this is where I have Purview attached. So remember we configured everything and wanted to kind of go in and have the connections around. Actually, I will do one more thing here. Because we wanted to report things, like if something has malicious word. When the reporting is switched on, you get this one here, report conversation, as you can see. So here I can go and report it, as you can see here. So this is really good to have, because then if somebody is writing something that is malicious or offensive, abusive, then you can report that person. And the people that is moderators and the people that is getting this one will basically be able to go in and do that. And that's also why I always recommend to, instead of having, as you can see here, instead of actually this one, instead of having the kind of the default email where you want to send things out to be like a email address, you should always create like an alias and to put it in here. So instead of like having like a physical email here, you should always put in an alias to do the same, because then you'll make sure that it actually goes to multiple people, and then you can have all the moderators within that list, basically, for them to get that. Now let's jump into Purview, so you can see how we can use a few things in there. So for instance, we have e-discovery mode. So to get into that, let's just go here on home first. Then I, of course, need to sign in again. And to do things with Purview, you can do, for instance, an audit. So within here, you can go in and you can actually go and create an audit and then search for Viva Engage content, basically. But we can and create policies in here to kind of align for the same with an audit retention policy. But right now, today, we don't have too many minutes, so I will actually show you a couple of other things, but just be aware of the fact that you can do that as well. But you have here under communication compliance, this is where you can go and create a different type of policies. So for instance, I have already created a couple of ones here. So if I go to policies, I have created 3 policies here. Actually, I have inappropriate content and I have inappropriate text, as you can see. So here I got 1 recommendation. So it asked me to kind of help to kind of like how to configure it perfectly. So let us just go and create a couple of policies together, so you'll see how we do it. So for instance, when it comes to interactive inappropriate text, Purview, let's just call it like this for now, we can select either all users or just a selected amount of users. We will need to select who should review it. So I will put myself. And then you can see here scoped locations. So you see Exchange, Teams, and Viva Engage. So we can also go in and customize the policy, as you can see. So we can go in here, click Next. Let's go. And here you can see selected users. You can do adaptive scopes, for instance. So you can create a scope to kind of limit it. But for now, we'll just create for everyone. You can also exclude users and groups that you don't want the policy to apply to, maybe leaders. And here you can go in and select what locations do you want to scope. So for instance, if you want to scope only Viva Engage, or if you want to scope then other like Exchange and Teams as well. Okay, click Next. And here you see that it's possible to add different type of classifiers, as you can see, like trainable classifiers, targeted harassment, threat, discrimination. Here you can add more, and you can find them in here: stock manipulation, customer complaints, probably not, but discrimination we have already, profanity we have, like corporate sabotage, we can have sexual, we can have hate, violence, and self-harm, and adult images, and so on. So you can add all of that in here, and then this one will actually go in and help us to do that. You can also filter a message from email blasting services, and we can also go in and do like OCR to actually check texts in images as well, because sometimes if you post an image and if within there that there's a really abusive text, if you don't click OCR here, it's not going to catch that. So I'll click Next and create policy. And now it will basically go in and go in and create it. You can also see percentage to review 100. You can also reduce it here to kind of limit how many reviews you should have every day. So, but this is, you have to test and then tweak it and figuring out how the number works for you. For inappropriate content is actually the same. So go in here, you have the reviewers, and you can, here you see it's only scope for Teams, but if you customize the policy, then we can actually go in and also do it with Viva Engage. So that's why I wanted to show you that. So let me just select myself, and here you see we can actually select also Viva Engage, and then it's just next. We can go and add the same kind of trainable classifiers, and we can select communication. So it should be inbound or outbound. That of course matters only outbound if it's external sharing in Viva Engage. Inbound, this is more if it's like email sending and all that kind of stuff. And OCR again, filter out if you want, and create. I'm not going to do that now since I already have it. And then this is already taken care of. Like other things that we want to do in here is e-discovery. And e-discovery is more or less possible to do both with if you have standard, which doesn't require the E5 license. But here I can also create a case. So let's just call it purview. Here, click save. And now we can go in and we just create a search. So if I can click new search, okay, testing, very good name. And here you see that we can select locations. So you have Exchange mailboxes that include Yammer user messages. You have SharePoint sites that include Yammer networks, like the Yammer communities. And click next. And here you can, of course, create some keywords to search for, but you can also just go in and select type, and you can select Yammer messages to kind of cover in Yammer, and click submit. And then for the other one, when it comes to the premium one, it's quite similar, but it's very little difference. I will just show it. We have like 3 minutes left, so we'll manage. I can show that really quickly as well. So I can just go into here. So you see I have one case. So if I just go into this one, I can actually show you my search within here. So it's actually not finished yet. So let's go back, create a case, testing, next, team members. So here you will go in and select, and on the, yeah, again, find text, click next, submit. Yeah, of course, you have to fine tune it, like who you want to search within and so on, because if you search everyone, then it takes quite a lot of time. But you can always filtering it and trim it down to find exactly what you're looking for, because it might be that you have a legal reason to go in and do a e-discovery. And yeah, now of course we just need to wait a few seconds for it to be finished. Just, of course, when you have bad time, everything takes long. It's always how it is. So perfect. Now we are here. Create a new collection. Testing again. And for now, this of course you also have to go in and configure, but I just wanted to show you that it's more or less the same here, where you want to do it. But in here, you need to again select a filter. So it's a little bit, the UI is a little bit different than on the standard one. And here you just need to go and find Yammer. yeah, my message is also not like sorting based on the alphabet, so it's kind of confusing. But here we go. Perfect. Let's bring back my last slide. So questions and answers, of course, we'll just take in the chat. And feel free to message me and connect with me if you have any questions. And of course, if you need more in-depth session, feel free to ping me on that as well. You have my contact details here, knut@teamcorem.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. There's only one Knut Relbe-Moe, so it's super easy to find me. And thank you again to the sponsors for making sure that this could be happening, and continue to follow all the other amazing speakers today. And of course,